Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are taking a really fascinating and actually deeply moving journey into one of the central figures of the classic investiture of the gods, the Fengshen Yanyi. We're focusing on Huang Tianhua. Now, he's a character who really embodies this uh, brutal transition, from the mortal world into the spiritual pantheon. Right. He starts off as this brave, skilled, but, human warrior. And he ends up as the powerful middle altar marshal, a protective deity worshipped across China.
Yeah, and that trajectory is sharp. Our sources, they give us a truly unique perspective on his power, but also his ultimate sacrifice.
Okay.
So our mission today really is to trace his full arc. We want to condense like a lifetime of service, divine training, battlefield heroism, all into the essential insights.
Right.
We're looking at how a young general's, let's say, impulsive nature led to a tragic, pretty early end, but at the same time secured his place up in the heavens.
Okay, so to really get Huang Tianhua, we have to start with his family, his lineage. He's the second son of the legendary General Huang Feihu.
A huge name.
Exactly. So in a story defined by loyalty, by defection, what does it actually mean to be the son of that general? How did that position him for, well, everything that was coming?
Well, that family name, it's foundational.
Yeah.
Huang Feihu wasn't just any general. He was like the pillar of the nation for the Shang Dynasty.
Right.
His initial loyalty meant his sons, Tianhua included, were basically set for comfortable, high-ranking military careers under King Zhou. But, the source material makes it really clear that the political atmosphere under King Zhou just became, well, completely untenable.
Yeah, I remember the details around the defection. They're absolutely pivotal. What pushed Huang Feihu, and I guess his whole family then, to just abandon that comfortable life and risk everything? To join Jiki, the Zhou campaign?
It really came down to persecution.
Yeah.
It was fueled by King Zhou's tyranny and his complete dismissal of Feihu's advice.
Oh.
Feihu tried, he tried to keep his post, but when that loyalty was just fatally rejected, defection was basically the only option left for survival, for justice.
Yeah.
And the moment the family joined Shiki, they didn't just add a few soldiers. They injected this massive amount of military experience, critical insider knowledge, right into the anti-Shang effort.
So it was a huge boost for Shiki.
Huge. Feihu immediately became a core general under Jiang Ziya.
Yeah.
The whole family became just integral to the rebellion's success.
So Huang Tianhua joins the cause, not just as some raw recruit, but as the son of this incredibly powerful defector. He brings inherent military skill.
Right.
But as the war went on, the battlefield changed, didn't it? It shifted from, traditional military tactics to something much stranger.
Yeah.
Magic divine intervention. He needed more than just a sword, right?
Precisely. His initial bravery, his military skill, that was recognized.
Yeah.
But the sources specifically point out his fundamental lack. Dafa Buzu.
Insufficient Daoist magic.
Yeah, insufficiency of true Daoist magic. When you're fighting disciples who can summon storms or, turn invisible, raw courage just isn't enough.
No kidding.
So this deficiency, it forced his path towards divine apprenticeship. And honestly, that was probably the most consequential choice of his, very short life.
Right. And this is where he goes from just being a general's son to, a real powerhouse. He wasn't trained by just anyone either. His master, Randeng Daoist.
Randeng Daoist.
That's an immense figure. How did this specific mentorship really change Huang Tianhua's role in the war?
Well, Randeng Daoist is one of the top figures in the Tian school, which was the rival to the Daoist sect. So just being his student was a mark of high spiritual potential.
Okay.
And this mentorship, it wasn't just teaching Tianhua a few tricks, it rapidly boosted his cultivation, his ability to actually wield spiritual power. He went from being, a talented general, relying on mortal tactics, to a spiritual warrior, ready to engage the highest level combatants out there.
And crucially, this apprenticeship came with the gear. The legendary Fa Bao, the magic treasures, these really define his heroic period.
Let's really drill down on these. What exactly did the five-fire god Flame Fan and the dragon-binding stake let him do?
Right, the Fa Bao. They're essentially high-level tech assets in this celestial war.
Right.
The five-fire god Flame Fan gives him mastery over elemental fire, which is, a key countermeasure against a lot of the demonic or elemental magic the Shang allies used. It's immediate mass destruction capability, basically.
Wow, okay. And the other one, the dragon-binding stake?
That one's different. It's a control artifact. It's used to instantly restrain, paralyze powerful opponents. Buys time for the kill or, for capture.
Yeah. What's fascinating here is that heavy reliance on external tools. You said his Dalfa was initially insufficient,
Right.
and then he gets these incredible artifacts. Does that sort of suggest his power was maybe more about the tools he had rather than his own internal cultivation? Well, that's a really good point. And the sources do hint at a complex answer there. I mean, the tools definitely amplify his power exponentially. They make him formidable, like right away.
Yeah.
But the fact that he was given artifacts specifically for control of the stake and brute force the fan maybe suggests Randeng Daoist recognized the need for, well, immediate impact on the battlefield.
Ah, okay.
The Dao Fa Buzu wasn't just about lacking spells. It maybe implied he lacked the immense spiritual endurance and wisdom needed for true independent cultivation. The kind of wisdom that really only comes with age and experience.
And that deficit, the lack of experience, of caution, that's going to be a key theme later on, isn't it, in his tragedy?
Literally.
But first, he had to prove those tools were worth it. And immediately, he became one of Jiang Ziya's greatest assets, just diving right into the thick of the most dangerous fights.
Oh yeah. He was instrumental in establishing Jiqi's dominance in several early phases. His fearless nature meant he was always put up against the toughest opponents, especially the disciples of the Daoist Sect. They were the mystical backbone of the Shang defense,
Right.
and his combat ability against them was just extreme.
Let's focus on that fight with Yu Hua for a second, because the sources seem to use this battle to really underscore that dependency you mentioned. Yu Hua had mastery over dark arts, Yaofa. How did Tianhua, even armed with the fan and stake, struggle in that fight?
Well, Yu Hua's power was insidious. It was based on demonic or dark arts that kind of bypassed traditional defense. So Huang Tianhua found himself trapped temporarily. His weapons, his speed, they weren't enough to counter those arts directly.
Ah.
And the source is really clear here. He only managed to escape and win after receiving specific guidance, Dianbo, from Randeng Daoist.
So it wasn't just general advice. It was a specific intervention, like, do this now.
Correct. And that's a critical narrative detail. It confirms that the power of the tool is kind of useless without the specific knowledge of how and when to apply it against unique attacks.
Right.
It foreshadows that while Tianhua mastered applying force, he still really relied on his master for true tactical wisdom, for counter-strategy. He had the strength, definitely, but not necessarily the deep insight.
Okay, this raises a question then. If he needed that kind of hand-holding, why was he still deployed against the absolute heaviest hitters, like the Mo family 4 generals? I mean, that feels like sending a young prodigy to fight 4 elder gods.
Well, the sheer scale of the war kind of demanded it. The Mo family generals, Mo Liking, Mo Lihong, Mo Lihai, Mo Lishu, they were armed with their own legendary Fa Bao and had tremendous cultivation.
Yep.
For Tianhua to repeatedly face them and specifically engage guys like Mo Lihai, it showed unparalleled martial commitment, resilience. He was operating at the highest level of the Jiki army's fighting strength. He proved that his tools, combined with his, fierce bravery, did make him a legitimate threat to basically anyone.
So we see this really rapid ascent. A young man, barely into his prime, wielding divine fire, binding mythical enemies, consistently fighting opponents way older, way more experienced. He seems almost invincible. The definition of a warrior prodigy.
He really does.
Why then did he fall? And so tragically, so quickly.
The sources explicitly link his downfall right back to that lack of wisdom we talked about. His fatal flaw wasn't cowardice. It wasn't lack of power. It was his youth and impetuousness. Nian Shaoqi Sheng.
Okay. Nian Shaoqi Sheng.
Yeah. It basically refers to overconfidence. A willingness to just charge headlong into a challenge without enough caution, without tactical analysis, believing his power alone was enough.
And that belief led him straight into a trap. It wasn't some grand confrontation with a god that killed him, was it? It was a clever, very human ambush.
Exactly. He was ambushed and killed by the enemy General Zhang Ku. Now, Zhang Ku was a mortal general who specialized in cunning counterattactics. He recognized that Tianhua's speed and aggression were also his biggest vulnerabilities. Tianhua's impetuous charge, without waiting for backup, without scouting the position properly, it allowed Zhang Ku to execute a perfect, fatal counterattack.
And the narrative really emphasizes the sorrow that followed this loss. It wasn't just another soldier falling.
Not at all. The sources highlight the grief of both his father's commander, Jiang Ziya, and his powerful master, Randeng Daoist.
Right.
This collective mourning really underscores the magnitude of his promise and the genuine tragedy of his mistake. He achieved maximum power, only to be undone by a single youthful lapse in judgment.
But as often happens in Fengshen Yanyi, death isn't really the end. It's more like an appointment.
Exactly.
Let's talk about his deification, the investiture of the god ceremony, the Fengshen Dadian. What status did he actually achieve?
Well, his sacrifice was immediately canonized. Jiang Ziya, acting under the heavenly mandate, formally elevated him. He granted him the title of Middle Altar Marshal Zhong Tianyuan Shuai.
Middle Altar Marshal.
Yeah. And this designation places him right in the celestial bureaucracy with a defined function. He's tasked with presiding over the middle altar, specifically to serve as a high-ranking protective deity. His job is safeguarding the nation and its homes.
Okay, if we look at that hierarchy, how significant is the rank of Middle Altar Marshal? Does it connect him to other major protective figures that, listeners might recognize?
Oh, it's an incredibly significant posting. The title itself suggests a figure who operates both in the celestial court and maintains deep ties to the mortal world as a protector. And he is actively revered today, often listed alongside other crucial protective figures from that era, notably the pagoda-bearing heavenly king Li Jing and the famous warrior deity known as the Three-Altar Sea God.
Oh, okay. So he's in good company.
Very good company. This association firmly roots him in the pantheon of dynamic, youthful, powerful protective deities.
So his influence is far from just being some historical legend. He's still a living part of Taoism and Chinese folk religion today.
Right.
But if we were to encounter him in a temple setting, what should we look for? What does his iconography tell us about his enduring legacy?
He's consistently depicted as a Shaonian Shenjiang, a youthful divine general.
Okay.
He's usually armored, reflecting his military roots. But his key identifying feature is that 5 fire god flame fan. You'll often see him holding it.
Right.
His whole image is designed to convey immediate, powerful action. He symbolizes justice, Zhengyi, and fierce bravery, young. But the iconography just reinforces that he's the eternally youthful protector, a champion whose short life was kind of redeemed by his elevation to godhood. So to summarize this, like lightning fast life, Huang Tianhua's story is one of rapid transformation. It was fueled by divine intervention, characterized by intense battlefield achievements. He used powerful tools, to bridge the gap between his mortal talent and the demands of celestial warfare. But the ultimate lesson, maybe, from the sources, is that no amount of power can really compensate for a lack of caution. His impetuousness cost him his life, yet that death secured his eternal place among the gods.
And this leaves us with a really potent paradox to think about. Huang Tianhua's ultimate failure in life, his strategic downfall, his death at the hands of a clever mortal, was directly caused by the impetuousness of his youth.
Right.
Yet his deification, his promotion to this powerful role of Middle Altar Marshal, was a direct reward for the bravery and sacrifice inherent in that exact same aggressive nature. So for you, the listener, consider this. Does the narrative of Fengshen Yanyi perhaps suggest that a tragic, maybe even foolish sacrifice in the heat of battle provides a surer path to eternal status than a long, cautious life lived to old age? It really challenges how we value mortal success versus, well, divine reward.